I managed to elbow Jack Hanma in the ribs and solar plexus, and I also cut off circulation in his arms using my medical techniques, and then I knocked out Jack Hanma with a jab to the chin, and Baki said holy shit, he used my jab, and I pointed to Baki Hanma and I said yes, I did use your move, sorry big bro. And Baki told my wife, he said Grace, please understand that we are here competing for his championship and we will do whatever it takes to get it, even resorting to dirty tactics. My brother doesn't like to use dirty tactics because he knows is dishonorable, but my father and I have no problem with it, and honestly I want that title, so I'm going to give your husband a very hard time, no offense. And she said none taken, but I trained with him for months also and I'm sure he's far stronger than you. And Baki said I know, but I'm ready. And then I was now standing in front of my big brother Baki Hanma and I said, if you don't mind big brother, I'm going to get a little more serious now. And then me and Baki flashed across the ring and then the ring cratered and cracked and I felt my arm actually feel a bit of pain in it, and I said I guess I'm going to have to start training more. And Baki said you have trained more than enough, but now it's time for me to take that title. And I smirked and said the only way you're doing that is if you actually beat me. And then I punched Baki, cracking his skull in many different places, and then Baki Hanma started to bleed from his head and I said I think I injured you Baki, you got hit a little too hard brother. And I knew he was rocked, so I knocked him out instantly and I sighed, and Baki said I'm not done yet, and I said yes you are, it's over Baki. And then he punched me and for the first time in a long time I started bleeding and I said incredible, and then I started to severely beat on Baki and I broke all his bones. And Baki said in his mind, damn, he's too fucking strong, I can't beat him, but I actually made him bleed and that's a first, but I think I pissed him off. And then I struck Baki Hanma in the chin with an uppercut and he went flying and he passed out, and I said sorry big brother. After that the rest of the fights were easy, no one stood a chance against me and I won every fight. And Ronda Rousey was staring at my wife and Ronda Rousey said, hi, I'm Jack's wife, what's your name ma'am? And Grace said my name is Grace McKenna Hanma, now I'm Bobby's wife Grace McKenna. And Ronda Rousey said it's nice to meet you, I heard your husband trained you like a fighter. And Grace said no, I'm no fighter. And Ronda Rousey said you look like one to me and you're taller than I am. And Grace said I'm just here watching my husband. And Ronda Rousey said me too, but I wished he could win against his brothers. For once he gave your husband a good fight this time, though I saw that they actually made him bleed for a little while there. I thought he was immortal or invincible, and I snuck up behind Ronda and said I pretty much am invincible. All Hanmas heal incredibly fast, especially if they are very strong, so in my case I heal instantly. My brothers will be alright unless they actually try to kill me one day or anyone else I care about. And Jack Hanma said I'll remember that if I ever want you to get serious little brother. And I said hopefully it never comes to that, I hope anyway. And I said hi Ronda Rousey, how are you? And she said I'm great except for the fact you just beat up my husband. And I said I'm sorry about that ma'am. And then she punched me and my nose bled and I laughed, okay sorry. And I said Grace, can we go now please? And she said no, why did you hit him? He didn't do anything to you, you bitch, you have no right to hit him, he's a man and he's my husband. And then Ronda Rousey said you want to fight me in the ring? And my wife Grace McKenna said yes I do. And I said are you sure honey? And she said yes I'm sure, no one does that to you. And then my wife fought Ronda Rousey and then my wife knocked out Ronda Rousey and Grace said you deserved that, you bitch, take a nap. And Jack Hanma said Ronda honey, and he ran to his wife with smelling salts and she said oh my god what happened? And by the time that Ronda Rousey woke up, me and my wife were long gone. And Ronda Rousey asked Jack where did that bitch go? And he said honey it's okay, they're gone, please let's go home now baby. And Ronda Rousey looked at him angrily and said oh fine. Then she kissed him while he was on his knees and they went home and made love, and then everything went back to normal and me and Grace continued our lives. And I heard about some escaped convicts Baki Hanma has to fight along with all the other Maximum Tournament fighters, and I heard about a new resurrected and cloned version of Musashi Miyamoto, and I thought I'm going to fight that guy. And then my father's spirit appeared before me and he said hello kiddo. And I said old man what the hell you doing here? I thought I killed you. And he said you did, that's why I appeared before you and not them.